I'm supposed to help solve your problem. Tell me what it is.
RPGs have become some of the most popular types of games out there over the past decade or so. So many amazing titles under this genre have been released that it's hard to keep up with what you should be playing. Today, we'll be discussing the best RPG games that you need to be playing right now. First up is Borderlands 2. Borderlands 2 is a decently old game right now. The game launched back in 2012, but is still easily one of the best RPG games of all time. The game is a looter shooter, meaning you kill stuff and loot their bodies for guns, shields, and grenades. The game has its own class system, with 6 distinct vault hunters to pick from. The story is amazing and has one of the best video game villains of all time, Handsome Jack. Overall, Borderlands 2 is just phenomenal, and you should at least give the game a go once in your life. The entire game, with all of its released DLC, can be found under Borderlands: The Handsome Collection for a cheap price. It's a great deal. Next up is Monster Hunter World. Next on this list is the ever-popular and most recent console Monster Hunter game, Monster Hunter World. This game took the world by storm when it launched, as it was the first console Monster Hunter game since the PS2. The game is just amazing, with hundreds of hours of content. The game is about hunting monsters with different weapons and farming them over and over again for materials. You can create your own character and build your own weapons from the monsters and creatures that you kill on your journey. The story is also pretty good. It's easily one of the best RPG games to play right now. Next up is The Division 2. The next game on our list is the second installment of the Division franchise, Division 2. This game is an open-world RPG with looter-shooter elements. You're meant to design your character, gear up, and take on missions alone or with some friends. The game has so many options for play styles and missions to take on. The bosses are really cool, and there's a diverse number of guns and weapons to choose from. This game is really good for beginners in the RPG genre and should easily get you hooked on these sorts of games. The game is always on sale, so it's a good idea to pick it up if you see it online. Next up is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is the newest game in the Assassin's Creed series. The latest 3 games have taken this series in a new direction, which makes them now open-world RPG games. This take is done really well, especially in this entry. The game is pretty recent and has a next-gen version for those of you out there who have a PS5 or a Xbox Series X. The game is an open-world loot game with bosses and areas to claim territories over. The game is really fluid and has so many choices for character builds. It's actually insane. This game is usually on the pricey end, but you could find it for cheap in a sale sometime in the future. Next up is Persona 5 Royal. Persona 5 Royal is the re-release of the game Persona 5, but with some of the new features and new story content, this game is well regarded as near perfect, or at least outstanding. The game has you take control over the protagonist, Joker, and collect personas on your journey to defeat the enemies in the game. It's a Pokemon-like system, and you need to collect them all to get even better personas. This game has an amazing story with some awesome characters. It's overall just amazing, and you should really play this game when you can, at least once. Next up is Stardew Valley. This next game is pretty different to what we've had on the list so far. The very popular Stardew Valley is a farming and life simulator game. You create your own character and get to tend to your own farm. You live with a bunch of villagers and get to make bonds and connections with them. It's a really interesting game and has some amazing elements. There's also a really cool dungeon crawling part of the game, which shakes up the farming simulator style of RPG. This game is really good for a chill and vibe out sort of time, especially for those of you who love farming simulators or village games like Animal Crossing. Check out Stardew Valley. It's pretty cheap on Steam and all platforms. Next up is Genshin Impact. Genshin Impact is a relatively new anime RPG game with some loot box style mechanics to it. The game is free, but with lots of microtransactions, which on paper sounds really bad. But with what you get for free, this game is outstanding. It's got a great story with some interesting characters and gameplay mechanics. It's a really simple game, but with some really hard mechanics if you want to take the time to get used to them. If you want to sink some money into Genshin Impact, you can roll for characters and weapons to increase the size and strength of your arsenal. Overall, Genshin is just a great game to try out for RPG fans. Next up is Skyrim. Skyrim is a game that really needs no introduction, and this goes for the last 3 on the list. It's a game that most RPG fans should know about, and it's one of the best games on this list and probably of all time. Skyrim is an open-world RPG game with some great mechanics and a great story. The gameplay is fluid with some really interesting mechanics to keep you wanting more. The looting system is a little janky, but what you get out of the game beats all of that. If you haven't already played this game at least once, do yourself a favor and get this game. It's been released on every console and is even getting another release later this year on the next generation of consoles. Next up we have Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Another game that really needs no introduction is the famed Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. This game is just phenomenal, and you really need to play it if you haven't already. It might even be worth getting a Nintendo Switch just for this game. It's that good. The game follows Link, but you get to decide what weapons you use and how you go about every situation on this huge open world map of the Kingdom of Hyrule. The game can also be taken in any direction you want, with some different playstyles throughout. This game is amazing, so pick it up if you have the time. And finally, we have The Witcher 3. The last game on this list is easily one of the most well-regarded RPG games of all time, if not one of the best video games in history. The Witcher 3 is a little rough around the edges at times, but what you will experience and get out of this game is well worth getting through some minor glitches once in a while. Despite its glitches and slight flaws, this game is really good. You follow the Witcher, Geralt, on his journey to save people from monsters. The game allows you to fight whatever you want and just explore to your heart's content. The story is also phenomenal and is really worth your time. The world of video games has been really great over the past decade or so, especially in the RPG genre. Obviously, there are many more games that we didn't put on this list, so please let us know down below what other games you want us to cover. We're being spoiled rotten in this next year, as the releases set to happen are some of the biggest in a while. More RPG games are being released, and with the launch of a Witcher 3 port onto the next generation of consoles, things are looking up. Now that we have the PS5 and Xbox Series X in the world, there are going to be way more amazing games coming and being announced soon. The new gaming generation has just started and should last for another few years before the next consoles launch. This generation is yet again the highest powered one, as the consoles are on par with PC gaming for the first time ever. The next few years are going to be amazing for RPGs, as it becomes one of the most important and popular genres for gaming. In every conference or presentation from a gaming company, some sort of RPG game is announced. The great thing about the genre is that it's so vague that so many games fit under its wing. There are so many variations of the genre that any game could really fit into its style and suit a different gamer. Be on the lookout for more RPG games coming out in the next few years, and also play those we recommended on this list. That's the end of the video. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe with notifications on. Thanks for watching.